Welcome in, everyone. This is the Dirt Bike Channel podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Brotherson, and I always laugh because this is the part where they talk about sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Dirt Bike Channel. I don't have any sponsors for the podcast. I've been lackadaisical, and I haven't gotten any sponsors for this yet. But that's okay, because it's brought to you by me, and it's produced by me, and I'm sitting here on, what is it? It's July 2nd. It's summer, man. We finally have hit summer, and I finally feel like I'm climbing out of the hole that I dug for myself over the Dirt Bike Channel sweepstakes that ended a couple weeks ago, and we've just had one thing after another, but I feel like summer is finally going to start for the Brotherson household here, and we're going to do some fun things. So hopefully we're going to get out on the boat here soon. Haven't ridden my dirt bike yet. It's what day is it? It's a Thursday? Is it a Thursday today? It makes me kind of sad to be like, I don't even know what day it is. This is one of the things that happens when you start working for yourself and you don't have to go into the office. It still means you have work. It just means work never ends. And it's hard for me to know what day it is. It is Thursday, July 2nd. And I don't know, maybe I need to get out on my dirt bike because I haven't been out this week. So maybe I'll go tonight or do maybe a night ride tonight, or I'm going to go out and do a day ride tomorrow. I don't know. We'll just see how all that shakes out. But and the family wants to go boating, so we're getting ready for a Lake Powell trip that we have coming up here at the end of this month, I believe it is. So we're getting ready for that. I've gotten the boat out and ready, oil change on the boat, all that type of stuff. Get her ready to go. So need to maybe go out and do a voyage out on the water, make sure that those things are good to go. So anyway, also, if you have podcast ideas, just go ahead and kick them over. You can email me, kyle@dirtbikechannel.com. I've got a list of podcast ideas, and this came actually from a listener who emailed me and said, hey, what about this? And so I've had it on my podcast topic list for quite a while, and today we are going to knock it out. So what I want to talk about is what's in my riding pack? What do I bring on my rides? I've done YouTube videos on this in the past, but I haven't done it in podcast form. At least I don't think I have. Hopefully this isn't something that I cover. But the good news about this is that it's a living, breathing thing. So this is what I'm bringing in my riding pack right now, but it changes over time. I've added a few things to my riding pack just recently, and the problem that I always have is, when is enough? So you have to really balance this out and try to make sure that you're not carrying too much stuff. And some guys carry more than me. Some guys carry less than me. In fact, a lot of guys carry a lot less than me. But then there are some guys that are carrying more than me. And I am using right now, one of my main riding packs is the Climb Knack Pack. It's the one that I use most often. Every once in a while, I'll use the Climb Arsenal vest as well. And I also have some, they're the USWE packs. Those are also very good. The thing I like about the Climb Knack Pack is that it's got like a little bit more organization than like the USWE pack. But I have I've got a bunch of riding packs, and whatever works for you is fine. The nice thing about the vests is that they can carry a lot of weight, and they distribute the weight more evenly on your body because you can carry stuff on the front as well as the back. But they come at a price because they're a little bit hotter. So those vests are a little bit better for the winter rides or the cooler month rides. Once we get into July and August, the vests, I don't like them as much. But you find something that works for you, and then you've got to start packing some things in it. So I want to give you some ideas of what you might want in your riding pack, because we're not just out at the track and a couple blocks from the truck. We are miles, many miles in a lot of cases away from the truck or rescue. So we have to be self-sufficient in a lot of ways. And you can't plan for every emergency, but we can plan for a lot of them, and then we can be prepared. And if you've got a couple guys in your group, maybe you've got, maybe you normally ride with 2 or 3 guys or 4 or 5 guys. Sometimes you could spread some of these tools out. So if you're doing a longer ride, you might say, hey, we want to bring some tubes. And so we're going to have one guy bring a couple extra tubes and he's not going to pack any tools. For me, I ride alone enough that I've got to have kind of a self-sufficient little system within my pack. And yeah, so that's what I'll show you what I do. And a lot of times I'm with a smaller group too, but it's just nice to have, everybody carrying their weight. Like, and if I ride, let's say I'm going to have one of the things that I will do sometimes and not other times is sometimes I'll carry a drone with me. And if I'm going to carry a drone or a bunch of like an extra heavier camera or something, I'll have my buddy, whoever's with me, like, you got tools, right? How many, you've got your tool pack with you. And if he's got his tool pack and I'm going to carry a drone or an extra big, large camera and a tripod or something, sometimes I'll leave my tools behind. But a lot of people have asked, like, well, how much does your pack weigh? My pack, I just weighed it today on my little shipping scale. I have an envelope shipping scale that's a postal scale. And my pack with everything in it, including my drone, it was 20 pounds, 20 and a half pounds. When I didn't have the drone in there, it was like 17 and a half or almost 18 pounds. So I'm carrying 18 pounds in my pack. It's heavy. It's really heavy. Once I get it on, when you pick it up, you're just like, wow, that's heavy. But once I get it on and get riding with it, I don't feel like it's heavy. But then if there's, every once in a while, we'll be playing around on an obstacle or something, and I'll take my riding pack off and just set it down on the ground and then go hit the obstacle. I feel like free as a bird when I take it off. So anyway, I've broken down I've broken down these components into 4 different categories. So essentially what I just did a few minutes here before I started recording is I just pulled everything out of my riding pack one by one and put it down, just wrote it down on this list. And then I reorganized the list into like 4 different categories. The categories that I have are survival, tools, medical pack, and miscellaneous. Okay? So survival, tools, medical pack, miscellaneous. Now, I'm going to go through this list, and I don't want you to think that these are in any particular order, especially order of importance, because that is in the eye of the beholder. And, an Israeli bandage or something might be the most important thing in your pack if, a certain thing happens. If another thing happens, maybe the spark plug could be the most important thing in your riding pack. So this is not in order of importance. This is just how I've decided to present it here for you. The first thing I'm going to start with is survival, because it doesn't matter what tools we have in our pack, if we can't survive, like let's say something happens and you have to spend a night out in the backcountry, we need some survival stuff. We've got to have water. The very first thing I'm putting on here is water, because yes, this is the most important thing. There's nothing else. Everything else pales in comparison to water. So most of the time when I go riding, I'm using some sort of a water bladder, and I run a 3-liter water bladder. Some of you take more. I know I was on a ride last week with one of my buddies, and he has about 6 liters of water with him because he has had a bad experience before where he ran out of water, and he drinks a lot more water than I do. He does intermittent fasting, and so he needs a lot of water throughout the day because he's not eating until like the end of the day. He eats one time a day. But the point is, I'm bringing 3 liters of water, and I like to fill that essentially up all the time. Most of the time I come back from my rides, I dump water out. And people are like, well, then you're carrying extra water and extra weight that you don't need. Well, until you need it, so I just carry the 3 liters of water. I'm also carrying food and some sort of snacks, like it might be an energy bar, it might be, a candy bar, it could be some Fig Newtons, it could be whatever it is. You need to carry something maybe, to snack on or whatever, especially if you have to stay overnight. That little energy bar will be a godsend for you if you have to stay overnight. I also try to bring my phone with me all the time. Now, we don't always have service, but you'd be surprised now some of the places that you do have cell phone service, and that could save your life. And so if nothing else, you can tell your family that you're going to be a little bit later, but at the worst case scenario, you could, get a hold of emergency services and call 911 or whatever if something happens. So it's better to have that phone with you than not with you. Okay. The other thing that I'll bring, or another thing I'll bring is my Garmin InReach GPS communicator. So this is when you can't get a text message out or you can't get a phone call out. This is a Garmin GPS device that is a 2-way communicator. You have to pay a monthly subscription. So the device itself is somewhere like $400 or $500. I can't remember. I bought it 2.5 or 3 years ago. But then there's a monthly subscription that you're paying for to make sure that you can send text messages and send SOS through the Iridium satellite network. And you're paying anywhere from like, $15 to $50 a month, depending which plan you're on. I'm on like a medium plan where I pay about $20-25 a month. I know some of you are going, well, I can't afford that. And I'm saying I can't afford not to. So I have that Garmin InReach plan. And I think especially if you're going on a big trip or whatever, someone in your group needs to have that. I would have saved a guy a lot of pain in about 4 or 5 hours a few years ago when we did a medevac evacuation. If I would have had one, it was the catalyst for making me get one, and I've used it before since to call, an SOS for somebody on that thing. And so that's a really, really great thing to have. Another thing that I have in my pack is 2 ways to start a fire. So I have a magnesium stick and I have a lighter. We were on a ride one time where we tried to start a fire because it got cold and wet and everything, and we had a really hard time starting a fire we couldn't start a fire with the spark plug on the dirt bike. With your dirt bike, you've got a few ways you could do it. We ended up just arcing a screwdriver or something, a pair of pliers off the battery with a gas-soaked, tissue paper, and we got it to light that way. But I'm carrying 2 different ways to start a fire. I've got a lighter, like straight up, cigarette type lighter, just big lighter in my toolkit. And I also carry a magnesium stick as well. With a dirt bike, you should be able to start a fire if you've got a lighter or magnesium stick because you have access to gas and some things. But I also I've started carrying with me some fire starting fuel. This is maybe a little bit of an overkill thing, but it's basically just, I've got the 2 ways to start a fire, but then I have these little like fire bundle things that burn really easily and they burn really hot in case I'm in an area where we've got to dry out the wood or whatever before it will burn. So I carry some of those. I've just started carrying those. I also just started carrying a Life Bivy, which is just basically the smallest sleeping bag that you can imagine. It rolls up into the size of about your fist and it compresses down. Imagine a sleeping bag that just trapped your body heat in, but it had no insulation. So it's going to break the wind and reflect the body heat back in towards you. It weighs basically nothing and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And I added that into my pack because if I end up having to spend a night up on the mountain or whatever, I want to be prepared. Another thing I've recently put in my pack is a Life straw. So you can get these things for like $20, $18 on Amazon. The Life straw, the one that I'm carrying is just the straw that you could like suck water out of a puddle or out of a river or a lake or whatever. I don't have a way to carry a lot of extra water. There are other options that you could do with filters where you could actually fill up your water bladder. Technically speaking, I guess I could fill up my water bladder with the Life straw because I could suck it in and then spit it down into my water bladder. But I just have the one that is literally a straw. It's like a big fat straw. Stick it down in my pack. It'll purify 1,000 gallons of water. So it could save your life, and I've got one of those in there. And then weather dependent, I don't always bring this, but I've got a rain jacket. I have one style rain jacket that goes around my waist, and I just bought a more expensive climb version that I can strap onto my pack if I need to. And I don't bring that all the time. You kind of have to look at the weather. If you were going on a multi-day trip and you weren't coming back to the trucks, I would say definitely you want to bring some sort of a life or a rain jacket. Windbreaker rain jacket, but I don't bring it all the time. So that's kind of like my survival stuff, the basic stuff that I have in there as far as survival. And again, I'm doing all this, and the pack is between 17 and 20 pounds, depending on how I have it configured. As far as tools, because I have a lot of tools in my pack, one of the things that I bring that is kind of a multi-purpose thing is a steel stick. So it's basically a little... steel. It's this little stick that you rub the 2 compounds together, and you can basically fix an engine case or whatever. It hardens. It's almost like an epoxy thing where it hardens, stronger than steel or this deal. So you can kind of fix a few different things. It's like worst case scenario if you crack a hole in the side of your engine case or something, and you need to try to keep oil or water in the bike. It is a good thing to have. I also keep a master link for my chain. Now, I've never broken a master link or had my chain break, but I've been with other guys that have. I've even been more recently, the last couple months ago, I was with Tyler and his son's bike, his little KTM 65. They threw a master link on that, and they had to pull him back because we didn't have a master link for the little chain. And I still don't have a master link for the little chain. But what I probably need to do is just put these types of things in my kids' riding packs so that I don't have to carry everything. In fact, I just thought of something because I'll get to it later, but I just had an epiphany that I think I'm going to do. So a master link for my chain, I have that in there. These are, and again, going over tools. I have screwdrivers, and they can be these multi-head screwdrivers where you've got a flat blade or a Phillips blade, whatever. You need to just kind of go over your bike and look over the things that you're going to probably need the most. Look over the types of tools and bolts and nuts and screw heads and things that you have on the bike, and make sure that your kit has those types of things. I generally run my tires with Tubliss, and so I have plug kits inside of my tube. So I've got, some plugs that I've got, and I've got, the little plug inserter thing so that I can plug my tires. I also carry a wrench that is kind of like a tire iron. And especially if you're going to use tubes, you should definitely have at least 1 or 2 tire irons in your pack. I only have the one because I generally am not going to need to take off my tire. But if you're running tubes, you definitely would want to have 1 or 2 tire irons in there. And especially if you're running with a group, if everyone has 1 or 2, then there's enough people that you could, if you needed 3. I've never really needed more than 3 tire irons to do any of this stuff. You could get by with that. You can also get by using a screwdriver a little bit. That can be helpful. Pliers. You want some sort of pliers and maybe something that can cut wire. A lot of times pliers will have, I call them diagonals, like diagonals where you can snip things off, but a lot of times our pliers will have some sort of a wire cutter built into them. So I'd like to have one of those. I do have one of those. I also have a tire gauge and a tire pump. So I sell these tire pumps. I don't have them up for sale right now on my website, but I found some that I really like, some tire pumps, and I have had a bunch of them made. So check back later in the year when I start selling stuff again. As we get closer, into the end of summer and fall, I'll bring my website back up, and you'll be able to find the tire pump that I use. You also want some sockets. This is another thing where you're going through looking at what's on the bike, and you'll find the main sockets that you need, and some way to turn them. You don't always have to have a ratchet, but there's different ways, like with different handles you can use, T handles or whatever, or Y handles that will accept sockets. I have a couple Y handle socket drivers where you can, and some of these you can pull the socket end of it off, and there are Allen keys or hex key wrenches underneath where the sockets would go. Those are pretty awesome. Motion Pro makes some good ones. And I've got a few different tool packs, and I've just, kind of a mix of things. So I have one tool pack that I mostly run, but I've got 2 or 3 tool packs. So if I can, have them on these different riding packs, I don't need to keep switching it all the time. So I've got a little bit different, setup in each one, but this is what I'm using on my main one. You also want to have some Allen keys that are available, and maybe those are on your Y handles, or maybe those are on your T handles or whatever, but you want to have some of those. Also, it helps to have a couple of end wrenches. Every once in a while, you just cannot get on something with a socket. And so you go through, maybe you need a 10 millimeter, maybe you might need a 13 millimeter or a 12 millimeter end wrench. You don't need a lot of them because these bikes don't have a ton of things, but you do need a wrench for your axle nut. This is something that people forget a lot. If you're running like a KTM or Husqvarna or even Yamaha, you might have a 27 millimeter axle nut. And some of the bikes have a 32 millimeter axle nut. And your kit that maybe came with your bike, if your bike came with a toolkit, it probably has a really, really crappy axle wrench. And so you might want to get something that's lightweight that is better than what the stock little piece of junk. And not everyone even gives you a toolkit anymore. And a lot of times those toolkit, you might want to you're going to need to augment with some of your own tools, so those Y handle socket drivers and like a decent wrench for your axle is going to be key. I already mentioned that I have a lighter in there that was in with my tools. I carry zip ties as well, like a smattering of zip ties, the plastic zip ties. You can fix a lot of things with those. Also, hose clamps. I'm carrying a couple of hose clamps in with my tools. In fact, I'm just looking over here. I need to grab those hose clamps and make sure that because I need to replenish my pack. So I've got to move that over there and replenish a couple of hose clamps. You never know when you're going to need that. I also have some like Bungee tie straps. They're like these little rubber tie straps. I got them from Trailbound, trailbound.co. He has some really good Bungee. They're like these rubber straps that you can use to tie jackets or tie all types of different things onto your bike, maybe a fuel can on your fender or something like that. So there's a good use. Like those are very multi-purpose things, and so I have those little straps, these rubber straps that I'll tie things on with. Check out trailbound.co, his website. He's got some of those on there. And then extra levers. I carry extra levers. Now, this one is a hard one because I'm riding so many different bikes all the time, but it's interesting because even like I'll carry a lever for a KTM because I'm on KTMs. When we're out on like nasty stuff, I'm usually on some sort of a KTM XC or XCW or something. But those levers will work on a lot of the betas for like clutches. So if you've got a clutch lever for the KTM, it'll work on the KTM, it'll work on the beta, it'll work on the Sherco. The brake levers, it's not as easy because some of these other manufacturers will use, Nissan brakes. But as long as it's a Brembo clutch lever, that works really well. The Magura clutch levers that come on the Huskies, maybe not as much. But anyway, I try to carry an extra set of levers for my clutch and my brake. I've never actually needed them because, well, I needed it one time on a Honda and we didn't have it. But of all the times we've ever broken our levers, we've only broken the ends of the levers off. I've never had to replace it fully. I have replaced them on the trail at times because if I had like a spare one in my pack and I broke one off and it was bent or whatever, I've replaced them just because I wanted to, but I've never had to replace it to get back to the truck. But I do carry those in my pack. They're down kind of in the bottom. And then also I carry spark plugs. So I've never fouled a plug on my modern big bore two-strokes. I never have. So I was carrying plugs for a long time, and then I stopped carrying plugs. But recently I've had a couple different times on my kids' bikes where we did foul plugs. So now, this is what I was going to say I'm going to come back to. I'm carrying a plug for my son's YZ65. I'm carrying a plug for my son's KTM 65. And I decided because of that, I'm like, well, maybe I should start carrying a spark plug for my big bikes as well. So I'm carrying a spark plug for the two-stroke. So I've got 3 different plugs in my pack. And I think what I've just had the epiphany of doing is I'm going to put those kids' spark plugs in their packs because they seem to be grabbing the same riding pack all the time. And I'll put those spark plugs in their respective packs. And that's what I think I'll do. I'm going to start requiring them to carry, a little bit more and more weight as we go to share the load with Dad. So that is something that I just had the epiphany of while I was doing this podcast here. So that's the tool section. We covered survival. We covered tools. Now let's get into the medical things that I have. So, and this is an evolving thing, and you never know how much is enough and what to carry here. But I had one of my friends, Dan Farrell, that helped me out, and he basically assembled a little medical pack, almost like a triage kit or whatever, that is just like the bare bones essentials if you're trying to control bleeding and things like this. So what we have inside of this little medical pouch is Israeli bandage. I think there's 1 or 2 Israeli bandages in there. It might just be 1. There's like a couple different clotting sponges, because we're trying to think what's going to happen out there on the trail. Like if you get a scrape or a cut, yes, we have some regular bandages, like regular like Band-Aids or whatever, but most of us are not going to need a Band-Aid. But we might need like something to really control the bleeding if we get, skewered by whatever. And so there's Israeli bandage in there. There's a couple different clotting sponges. There's athletic tape and there's gauze. There's gauze for like to control bleeding or to put down over an open wound or whatever, and then have the athletic tape or whatever, the compression wrap, to be able to wrap around your arm if you broke your arm, if you needed to, make a splint, like you needed to mobilize or demobilize or stabilize or whatever they call, like stabilize an arm or something like that. Or even a leg or something. We've heard of times where guys used a tire iron to like immobilize somebody's arm. So they pulled out a tool and used a tire iron and then wrapped this, compression tape around that to demobilize somebody's arm to keep it from moving, keep the bone from moving around. So we've got some of that in there. There's also skin glue in there, like basically like super glue in case you needed to glue the skin back together in place of stitches or something like that. And then I've got ibuprofen. I've got some ibuprofen and some aspirin in there. Also, a lot of times I'll have like a Benadryl or something or like an allergy pill, like a Zyrtec or an Allegra or something like this in case you need it. A couple months ago, I did need it. Like we had juniper like way up in bloom up here near where I live. And I'm allergic to juniper. I didn't really know that until recently, but if I come in contact with it, I'm out there riding all the time. It has to touch my skin, but it was just really bad, my allergies one day, and I was sneezing and coughing and everything, and I really could have used like a little allergy pill, and I didn't have one at that time. So those are the things that I'm carrying as far as medical goes, just in its own little pack. And then last but not least is like my miscellaneous thing. So I have some wipes. I generally are carrying like wipes for my goggles, and sometimes it depends on the goggle. I might carry an extra goggle if I've got the room for it, or maybe just an extra lens for my goggles. But something to wipe them off with. I'll carry a trail saw almost all the time now. Just a lightweight saw that I can slide down in my pack. And once we get it out one time, if I take it out of my pack one time, I'll just stuff it down inside my boot so that it's not taking it's just easier access. Depending on the day, I might have a drone, and the remote control and the batteries, that takes up an extra bunch. And so I'm usually, not always, but usually only taking the drone if I go with other people. And that way I can be like, hey, I can drop the tools out of my pack and be like, do you have tools? Do you have a way to, plug tires and things like this? And if they say yes, then I will bring the drone, and I will not bring my tools with me to kind of offset some of that weight. A lot of times I'll have in there obviously my point of view camera, my Sony point of view camera, I've got that in there, and some extra batteries. But I also do a helmet light for night rides or emergencies. I really, really like the Oxbow helmet lights. I did a review on one a while back. They've got an updated version of it now. I think it's the Oxbow Voyager headlight that I use, and it just snaps onto your helmet in like a GoPro style mount, and the little battery goes back in your pack, and it can last. They're super bright. They're well bright enough for you to ride with just this little light, LED light on the top of your helmet. It'll last for 4 hours, and so that should be enough to get you back. And you can have extra battery packs if you think your ride is going to go longer. You can bring an extra battery pack for that inside your pack. I also carry extra gloves just in case I, totally hammer my gloves or something happens to them and I want to have an extra pair. I'll carry an extra pair of those. I also carry wet wipes. You know what I'm talking about. If nature calls and you have to go right then and right there, wet wipes are an awesome thing to have to keep you from chafing. And then last thing that I've got on here, and again, I don't bring this one all the time. It just kind of depends on the day, but I might carry a battery pack for the phone / GPS, like a little power bank or whatever, that I could use to power the GPS or the phone in case of emergency, in case I needed to stay up there overnight and who knows what. It's just not a bad thing to have. It can also be, the one I have, it can also be used to jumpstart your dirt bike. I don't have the leads with me, so what I need to do is put the leads, like the little leads that you would put onto your bike. I need to just find those. I don't know where I have them. I need to find that and just stuff them down in my pack. And again, you never know how much you need to be carrying. That's the balance here. Is my packs feel like the packs feel like they're really heavy once I've got all the water in there. Yes, they do lighten up some because a lot of that is water weight because I've got 3 liters of water. But that's a little less than 8 pounds of water. So somewhere around 7-8 pounds of water is what I'm bringing with me. So the packs are still heavy even after you've had all your water. And I never want to get to the point that I've had to drink all the water. I mean, obviously I have the life straw in there so I could, survive if I've had all my water to drink. But that is what I have in my packs as of right now. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys, and it can give you an idea of maybe some of the things that you should be putting in your pack, because that's what this whole thing is about, is just helping people to, have some ideas of what you should have. So that gives you a rundown of everything that I've got in there. We started with what did we start with? Survival items with water and snacks and Garmin, and we went to tools, all the different types of tools that I carry. The little medical pack, it's like an auxiliary pack that's a pack within a pack that I carry, a bunch of different things. Israeli bandage. I didn't even mention there are little teeny scissors inside of that medical pack as well, in case you need to, cut like gauze or whatever you need to cut, or cut the compression wrap or something like that. You can do it with those little scissors. And then miscellaneous wipes and trail saw and drone and camera and, helmet light. And if your bike has a headlight, great. But that helmet light could be really, really useful if you have to spend the night, because then you could walk around and find wood and things like that. So it's a nice thing to have. It doubles as a flashlight. I like having a flashlight with me in like my emergency survival situations. But this helmet light basically kills 2 birds with 1 stone. So I don't need to carry an actual flashlight, because I do have an auxiliary light with me. And yeah, so that is the thing that I have for you guys today. Hopefully everybody is doing well and they're all COVID-19 free. Again, if you have ideas for the podcast, just email them to me, Kyle@dirtbikechannel.com. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to support me and what I'm doing and my family, one of the easiest ways that you can do that is to go to my website, dirtbikechannel.com. Over there, I have links to companies. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, I've got links of dirtbikechannel.com. There are links up there, upper right-hand corner. You click on that, you've got links to Rocky Mountain ATV, Amazon Motorsport, and those links give referral bonuses back to me, and that helps out a ton. Every once in a while, we do Dirt Bike Channel sweepstakes where we give dirt bikes away after I've ridden them and reviewed them. I'll have another one of those coming up in October, November, December timeframe. We just completed one now. Or if you just want to donate, you can just go to my website. You can donate using PayPal or using your credit card. And that's what I got for you. Again, hope everybody has a great summer. You'll hear from me again. I hope to do these podcasts a lot more often now that I have a little bit more free time. And the only thing left to say is let's leave a single track. Thanks.